Welcome to the Very Merry Life podcast, unfiltered, unscripted, and always relatable as fuck. I'm your host, Mary Hendricks, and you might know me from Instagram as That Relatable AF Mama, who hopefully feels like an old friend at this point. And if not, hang tight and join in as things get real, honest, and probably a bit too TMI as I, and the help of some amazing guests, dive into all things mom life, marriage, sex, and more. No experts, just real life moms talking real life things. So get ready to laugh lots, cry occasionally, and leave feeling seen, supported, and inspired. Making friends is hard enough as an adult, let alone as a mom, but all of that changes right here and now. So hang on, lean in, virtually clink whatever glass you have nearby with mine, and let's go. Hi, Marcella.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me.
Always. I am excited for this. I'm excited for you. And I'm just excited to pick your brain on all things, especially your book.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love talking all kinds of mom stuff. I feel like it is so important for moms to know they're not alone and they're not crazy and be real and put it all out there. So I'm excited to chat.
Which is what I'm all about. So before we get into it, I'll let you introduce yourself to all of the listeners and we'll get into the fun stuff.
Well, hello, everybody out there in the world. This is Marcella Hill. You may have seen my face talking about low sex drive and feeling like I was a crazy person on TikTok. I also am the author of a book called Wake Her Up. I am a small business owner. I am the mother of 4 children who live in 3 different households. So we have a blended family. I have an almost 18-year-old daughter who lives with her dad 3 blocks from me. I also have a 15-year-old son who just recently decided to live with his dad as well. And then I have a stepson who's 15, lives an hour north of me. And I have an 8-year-old daughter who actually lives with me. So that's who I am.
I love it. It's a dynamic that more people probably can relate to than not, which is, again, something that needs to be talked about because blended families and, all that stuff is... It's more the norm, I feel like, these days. And it's,
I used to feel like we were a very broken, messed up family. And recently I've decided to re-tag us as we are a creative family.
I like it. Hey, it's all about mindset with that stuff. But that's how it always is. It's reframing how you look at things. And that's kind of the way, because you could look at it from a broken aspect, but I feel like that's probably a societal thing that's kind of been driven in is how a family should look. And the more no family looks the same. I think it's just a picturesque idea in our head.
Yeah. And, I live in Utah. Okay. And I live in a place and a culture that's predominantly the Mormon religion. I was raised Mormon. I no longer practice the religion, but I feel like what's interesting is that culture of a man and a wife, a man and a husband and their 6 children in their happy home with their cute dog and their Tesla, that's literally the family picture that I have always been raised with. Yeah. And what's interesting to me is that as I've kind of broken out of the shell of the religion, I realized it's not just my religion. It is across the world that everyone's decided what this perfect family dynamic looks like. And anything other than that, we've decided is subpar, or that we were broken at some point, or we're trying to get back to that. I know that, I was married for 9 years. I did have that perfect looking family. He was an attorney. We had our forever home. We had our 2 cute babies, and I was a stay-at-home mom. We had our dog even, we had all the things. Yeah. And he had an affair. And it destroyed my life. It just completely destroyed my life. And I had to suddenly move away from my children. I moved 7 hours from my 2 and 4-year-old because that's where my parents lived. And I knew no one where we were. It was all his family. Yeah. So I moved back home. I was 7 hours from my babies. And quite frankly, I thought without my title and the day-to-day of motherhood, I didn't even know how to exist outside of this like perfect box. I thought I didn't exist. I thought motherhood defined me. I thought a wife defined me. I thought getting up and finding sippy cups all day and doing the snacks and all the things you do, all the play dates and the preschools and all the things you do all day. I thought that's who I was. And when it was truly like literally taken from me, I didn't exist. I mean, I was just a shell of a human. And I have worked the last 11 years to figure out who am I without being in that box.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, I think that's like an important reminder, even a reminder for myself. Like I'm in that world of little years, like the little kid years of, and you and I talked on the phone before all of this. And I remember saying to you, like, it's hard to imagine my life not being this. Like it's very hard to, like, there are certain moments where all of a sudden it will hit me and I'm like, one day my kids won't be like, they'll be all grown up and they won't like be next to me at all times. They won't be begging me for things. And it's hard to imagine that. And it's very easy just to fall into the hole of, this is all I am. This is all I do. And that's all I'm worth. And you're not. But it's incredibly scary to see beyond that at the same exact time, because I think we just get immersed where we don't have.
Yeah. You're literally trying to keep humans alive, you know, I mean, you are immersed and, you know, there's a time and a season and a place, but I think if I could go back and tell myself something that I think would have been helpful, it would have been, you know, to make sure that I was also on the list of things to do. I was a priority during the day, at least a little bit. I mean, even just once in a while being like, what do I want for dinner?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to make what I like for dinner, not like what anyone else likes. And I'm going to make it even if nobody likes it. I'm going to make it because I want to make it. Yeah. It's like these little choices of recognizing like you matter, you exist, you're there. One really interesting thing that happened when I was losing my identity, I had volunteered to coach at a dance team at the local high school. And I had completely forgotten about that because my life like blew up in my face. And in the middle of one of the darkest moments of my life where it was like non-existent, hoping I would just die in a corner, I got an email and they said, hey, we'd love to have you. And I thought, there's no way I can go show up for these girls at a high school when my life is completely falling apart. I'm the biggest, hottest mess you've ever seen. There's no way I could fit that in. That would be irresponsible of me, you know, when my life is falling apart, to go pick up something new. And by some miracle, I responded and said, I'd be there.
Yeah.
And instantaneously, my life went from this dark corner of non-existence to all of a sudden listening to like Britney Spears and dancing around the house with my kids and choreographing stuff. And it was like this bright light. And that seemingly small moment made me realize that passion for dance and just wanting to be around youth, it literally was my air. It was the thing that saved my life and made me exist. It wasn't getting up and making my kids food. It wasn't, you know, making the bed or doing the laundry. It was going and dancing and sharing this passion with these girls. We think that these hobbies or these interests, we think that they're extra. And we think that they'll just somehow come back when our kids are like grown up.
Yeah.
But the problem with that is that they are literally your air. They are the thing that makes you exist. And when you put them aside for so long, you'll forget what it feels like to be alive. And you'll end up just living in this nothingness, not even knowing. And that's why my book is like, you don't know you're asleep until you wake up. Yeah. A lot of women are just like kind of sleeping through their lives, having totally forgotten what it feels like to be alive. Yeah. You know, I talk to 40-year-old women all the time asking them, when's the last time you felt lit up? And very few women have an immediate response. And even if they do respond, it's something back in high school or college. It wasn't something they did yesterday.
Yeah. Well, it's because we've been, especially like, so for like my years with like the little kids and stuff like that, doing anything that is outside of my kids is like, it's shunned, it's shamed, it's not talked about. Like you're guilted for it. We guilt ourselves because again, it trickles into so much shit where apparently like we think that it all has to happen. We're the ones that have to run the ship. Like we're the ones that immediately take on all of the responsibility. So if we take a second for ourselves, we immediately guilt ourselves because we're like, no one else is running it. I got to run it. And if I don't, then I'm a failure. Like, that's not true. And then we're also just told that like we need to be selfless, like we need to be selfless during motherhood and things like that. And you are, but I'm a big believer personally that selfish and selfish or selfless like can exist within the same things. You're allowed to focus on yourself and be selfless at the same exact time. If anything, focusing on yourself helps you focus on others.
Yeah. As I think, I don't know who it is, but somebody says, being selfless is not being without yourself.
Yeah.
There's some famous person, I'm sure, said that, but somebody told me one time I was struggling with this and I was like, how can I, it was just recently like writing this book, spending all this time away from my kids, like podcast this and speaking and traveling and all these different things. And she said, if you cease to be all of you, that will be the most selfish thing that you can do.
Yeah.
And she said, you have so much to give. You have so much to offer beyond what the world tells you should be doing. And when you numb that out and don't do it and make excuses because the world is telling you what you should be doing, that is selfish. And she really it was kind of a slap in the face. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I always I look at everything like that I do now, like, especially this and like whatever. It's just, I literally look at it from like my kids' perspective. Like I look at it as even today on Instagram, I talked and I shared a reel both on TikTok and Instagram. And it's basically talking about like my role as a stay-at-home parent. And I was talking to my husband about it because there was the moment you bring up anything like that, people always complain. But I was talking to my husband about it. I said, it fires me up. And it was a nasty comment that came in. And I told him, I said, I don't get offended. It wasn't me getting offended. It got offended as a whole. And I said, because when I get negative comments about this stuff or whenever, I think about my kids. And I'm like, I want to do this stuff for my kids. Everything I'm doing is for my kids in hopes that like I can model what I'm doing right now. I hope that if my kids decide to be parents one day, that they learn that they can still pursue their dreams and they can still have a really great experience and love it, but also love the things that are extra on the side. I just feel like that's not modeled enough. Instead, we're like modeling just submissive, give up everything about you.
Yeah. One of the things my sister talks about, Sharon from Sharon a Life, she's like, don't be a victim to motherhood. And it's interesting because she talks a lot about motherhood and I talk more about like life as a middle-aged woman.
Yeah.
And I am like, don't be a victim to your life, whatever you're at, if you're an empty nester, if your husband has had an affair, if your life fell apart, if you went and had an affair, whatever it is, wherever you are at in your life, like stop being a victim of life. Like you're a human. You can just choose what you want to do, and if you're a stay-at-home mom and you don't like being a stay-at-home mom, then don't be a stay-at-home mom. Like you're a human. Like you can just go get a job. Like you can work anywhere, I mean, you can just go do that. People do it all the time. So why not you?
Yeah.
And I think we've swung so far the other way, with women being so invisible that we are teaching our kids that in order to be a parent, you have to be invisible. Yeah. And we're going to raise kids that like don't want to have kids because the cost is losing yourself.
Yeah.
And we now live in a world where our moms, and I speak from like me and a lot of my friends, our moms lost themselves to motherhood. And now we don't really know who our moms are as an individual. And they're quite lost because we've all moved out and moved on and have our own families. But then we're guilty because we're not doing mom life like they are.
Yeah.
And what you've ended up with is this generation of women that don't know who they are and literally aren't even showing up because we're trying to hold the standard of our mother who doesn't know who she is.
No,
that's not a good pattern.
No. And that's the biggest thing. And Lucy, hold on, my dog is in here. I'm like, look at you done? Just like look at her butt. So I'm like turning around. I'm like, ugh, the noise a dog makes when they're licking themselves. I'm like about to go insane. It's the worst thing ever. I'm like, ugh. No, well, and that's the thing. It's like, and I think that's the biggest change. And I think social media has this power, and I hope it continues. And my hope right now is that motherhood is hitting its peak with hardship. Like, I hope that things only continue to get easier, where we're just breaking down the walls of like being able to communicate better and be able to ask for help better and be able to transparently explain the shit. And it's not a negative thing. Like, it is hard. It's hard. Motherhood is not, it's not easy. And I think we haven't been warned enough about that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, a warning doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think it's just a caution, like proceed with caution because this is hard and this is what to expect. But I think what I think can get better is if we do like a proceed with caution, but guess what? There's others along with you that are going to help you through it. And that's what I'm hoping for, because we do. I mean, you just get swallowed up, and motherhood becomes this whole martyrdom. Like, I don't know if that's a word, but like you just become a martyr of your life. And
you're just getting dragged through it. Like you said, there's no preparation. There's no, hey, this is normal. You're literally just getting dragged, thinking you're all alone, thinking you're supposed to be doing it this beautiful way. And then when it doesn't look this way, you have failed or you are failing. And then we go into like, oh no, our kids are going to be failures and all of, we just take on so much that is not even real.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we define ourselves by what our kids are doing, that's a problem.
Yep.
It's a huge problem. I mean, your kids are going to make epic mistakes.
Yeah.
And every time they make a mistake, you're going to blame yourself. You have enough mistakes of your own to deal with it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't define yourself by other humans.
Yeah.
And then also define our worth or the amount of how lovable we are by how much other people, especially our children, love us, appreciate us. And that's why we like yell at our kids when they're not showing appreciation. We yell at our kids when they're not showing enough love or compassion or whatever, because them holding out love means we're not lovable. And that's not true.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem with this is when you don't love yourself completely unconditionally, you can't possibly love other people, including children, unconditionally. So with my oldest daughter, I used to think I was being a good mom by telling her all the things that she shouldn't be doing. She would tell me about how she had a difficult conversation with her friends. I'd be like, well, maybe you shouldn't talk to your friends like that. Like, that's kind of bratty, or maybe you shouldn't dress like that, or maybe you should chill out on your makeup. Or, I mean, I was trying to be a good mom. Yeah. Honestly, I was doing what I had in my capacity to do. Yeah. And when she moved out, it killed me. And it wasn't like hey, let's go try to live with your dad. It was like, F you, I'm going to go live with my dad. It was a bad situation. And I feel like I had completely failed her, which meant I was a failure. What ended up happening is I decided, okay, here's another situation. I either disappear into failure or I find who I am without being a mother. Yeah. And I had to redesign what motherhood looked like when she wasn't there, because I wasn't putting her to bed anymore. I wasn't making sure she got to school. I wasn't making her meals. I wasn't doing her laundry. I wasn't making sure that her bedroom was clean. Like, everything that defined motherhood to me was gone. Yeah. And what I discovered was that I am not a failure. Quite frankly, it was like a spiritual experience. I said, God, fix this.
Yeah.
And he was like, stay out of the way. I'll fix it. And I was like, fine. I was pissed. And I stayed out of the way and things got way worse. I went back to God and I was like, you said you would fix this.
Yeah.
And you didn't. Like, I'm going to step back in and do it my way because you're obviously not doing it right. And I had a very clear message come to my mind that said, see, I'm a perfect parent. And she can even not like me. Yeah. She can even not accept the things I give her. I was giving her everything that she needed and she didn't want it. So you're doing it exactly right. You are exactly who I made you to be for her, with all your good and your bad that you decided was bad, but it's not.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, holy shit, like I am a whole being. And guess what? Me being a whole being made it, she was a whole being.
Yeah.
And for the first time, we went to lunch. We sat at Chick-fil-A. And for the very first time at 15 years old, I sat across from my daughter and didn't nitpick her at all. I was so privileged to be in her presence, no matter what came out of her mouth, no matter what attitude. I was overjoyed that she existed and I got to be there for it.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, we just don't open up enough space to be creative with our motherhood and where we can show up for our children. We're so worried about fitting into this good mom box that we have never explored. Like, how could I be a mother for this child under this circumstance? We're just worried about what our neighbor is going to say, or what our mom is going to say, or what our mom did and we should do, that we can't be everything that we're actually capable of being.
Yeah. No, well, and I think you make an excellent point too. It's like, we can't, I can even think of things where it's like, you can't love your kid unconditionally because, kind of like come up with something that we're all, it's a projection. It's no different than anything else. Like anyone that projects something on you, or anytime anyone comments something, chances are it's a projection off of an insecurity that they have. It's something that's in us. Like I know, thinking right off the bat of things that I have probably said or done, because it is something that I experience and I doubt in myself and I fear. And you forget that this is not you. Like you're not raising a new clone. It's not a clone of you. It's someone that came out of you who's going to grow up and be their own individual, which you hopefully get a part of that piece, and you hopefully get a portion of who they are, but not everything they are. And that's what we forget.
We'll be back after a quick break. Eye-Opening Moments podcast are real-life stories of adversity, encounters, and perspectives. They are moments that can lift your spirits, give you some food for thought, or move you. For the introspective mind that likes to reflect, discover, and find solutions or meaning in a complex life, listen to Eye-Opening Moments podcasts.
And I think that's why it's so important for mothers to be individuals, to be able to show their kids how to be an individual. Because if we are showing them what it looks like to define ourselves by other humans, they will define themselves by other humans. Whether they have children or not, they will define themselves by what their boss thinks of them, because their mother defined herself by what her kids thought of her, by what her husband thought of her, because we never spent enough time to go find ourselves. I just talked to my little girl, she's 8, and her friend was a wrestler. Her mom picked her up. Her mom is leaving tomorrow to go on an 16-day backpacking trip by herself in the Ozarks over Thanksgiving.
That's badass.
I was like, you're a badass. She's like, we just did Thanksgiving on Sunday. Yep. It's something I've always wanted to do. She is an amazing mother, an amazing human, and even more amazing because she knows she's worth spending time with.
Yeah.
She knows she's worth going and doing something that will light her up just because.
Yeah.
And we say that that's selfish. And I say that's bullshit.
I think that's
done
bullshit.
it for too long. We've lost ourselves for too long. We're not even living.
Well, and it's not even losing ourselves. I honestly, because I recently saw a video. It was on TikTok. I don't know if you saw it, but it was some girl, and I felt so bad. She was it was a mom. I think she was a first time mom, and the video was her dressed up and she had makeup on. And I'm sorry, I thought my dog was licking her butt again. Oh my God. Came out. But she was in the car and she was crying because she like gotten herself all put together for the day. And she said, I just feel like a fake. Like I feel like a fraud right now. I don't know who I am. And I thought that if I did the things I used to do, I would feel like something. And it was basically pointing into like this whole, I think it's called momessence. It's like it's a term for like the transition into motherhood. It's essentially the kind of like how puberty is like a new transition into a stage of life. Motherhood is a transition into a stage of life of a new identity. But the thing that I think about is I don't think a lot of us even know who the hell we are prior to kids. So when it comes when it becomes time to try and find ourselves again, we have no idea what we're even looking for and how to even recognize it, because who that person was before kids, we didn't really even know either. So it's like, it's hard to spot our old selves when we don't know what they look like.
Yeah. I mean, you're exactly right. A lot of people never found themselves before. I think that as children and as high schoolers, college students, I guess I would say this. I think we were born whole. That's my belief. I think you were born whole. And I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for the things that brought us joy, even as children.
Yeah.
So if you're out there wondering, like, I don't even know what brings me joy, just when in your life ever do you remember having joy? Is it going to the movies? Is it planting flowers? Is it, I don't know. It could be literally anything. I had a woman say to me, I was speaking about joy and how to find your joy. She was probably in her 70s.
Yeah.
And after I was done speaking, she came and talked to me. And she said, when you were asking that, I literally had no idea. Yeah. I don't even remember the last time I felt alive or lit up or had like that joy from the inside out. Because I'm like, what brings you joy? And you can't say any humans.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it can't be any humans.
Yeah.
And she finally said, but I found out what it was. And she said in high school, she was on the debate team and instantaneously her face lit up. I mean, she was like in total tears. And she's like, why have I never helped on any campaigns before? Why have I never gotten involved in any politics? I have never even shown up to like a city council meeting. And I was like, well, then go show up to your city council meeting. And she's like, I am, damn it. Like that's what she was going to go do, because she found out like, that is voicing her opinion was what brought her joy.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, is that I think a lot of times we think about these hobbies and we think, oh, we have to get this equipment. We have to sign up for a class. We have to do all this stuff. I had a girl call me in almost like a total panic attack. She had a tiny newborn, was super colicky, and she just felt like she was like invisible, fading away. And I was like, okay, let's settle down. And I was like, just tell me anything that has brought you joy. And she's like, well, I've been thinking about going to a ballet class. I used to do ballet a lot. I really like to get back into that, but I don't know when I would take a class. I was like, do you have ballet shoes? She's like, yes. It's like, just go put them on. Yeah. Like literally while we're on the phone, while you're holding your baby, just go put your ballet shoes on. When we're off the phone, I want you to just turn on your classical music and I want you to hold your baby and just do some ballet in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like just that. I mean, honestly, when I turn on like Paula Abdul, I'm like, there I am, right? Like I am like shining bright, and I just don't, it's not as hard as we make it.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to a pottery class. You don't have to go swimming with the whales. Yeah. You just like find the music that you listened to when you were like jamming out in your car with the windows down and like not caring about a damn thing in your life.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. I dance in my kitchen all the time. That's like one of the big things that I'm doing on Instagram. Always, I have a sign in my kitchen that says, "But kitchens are for dancing" or something. Yes. But that's literally all I do. And I put on music from like crazy high school days or whatever. And I'm like, it's the time where I just like I dance all silly and goofy, but I think that's why I honestly have gotten into this whole thing. Cause I used to love, like, I was a terrible actress, but I used to love doing that stuff. And like, I love it. It brings me joy. So that's why
Did you used to be in plays?
I tried, but it wasn't like anything crazy. I was literally in like 7th grade that I took a like a theater camp. I was like such a nerd, but I did it and I was so into it. And I have to find the videos for me. I was not any good.
You know that like adults go and do plays, right?
Oh, I know. I know. I probably should at some point. I can't sing.
You probably should.
I can't sing, so that's my issue.
Like that's such a good example because imagine if you actually went into that. Let's just say you go and audition.
Yeah.
And that's as far as you go. But imagine waiting for callbacks. Just that. You and your kids would be like, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? Like they would be all in. Like what brings you joy would light up your house.
Yeah.
So when I was going through trying to find my joy and my daughter had just moved out and I hadn't talked to her for quite some time, I decided to sign up for a hip hop dance class. And it was so hard because I thought, this is money I don't have, time away from the family. It's right during bedtime. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm not going to like go pursue a dance career anywhere. Yeah. It was literally made no sense. And I went to dance class and it is like air.
Yeah.
I cannot explain it. I am dancing for no reason at all in this dance class in a studio that I used to dance in when I was like 16. And it was like, I was alive. And I was like, how have I been living without this air?
Yeah.
And then the funny thing is that I would come home. The kids would have stayed up waiting for mom to come home from her dance class. And then instead of like a really boring regular bedtime, it was like, Mom, what dance did you learn? And then I would turn the music on and show them my dance. Like Mom got to show off her dance. And Wednesday nights ended up being like the best night. And it wasn't like your normal bedtime that a good mom does. It was like mom dancing and everyone learning mom's dance and then run to bed.
Yeah.
And we just get so stuck in like how we've always done it. We're scared to do it other ways. We think it's selfish when, I mean, literally the short subtitle of my book, Wake Her Up, is if you think something's missing, it's you. Yeah. It's probably you.
Yeah.
And it's just so true every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, and I love that because it is true. I mean, it's true. I don't want to leave. As I said, I always think about my kids in these aspects. And I'm like, I just feel like I have a therapist and I was just talking to her yesterday about it. And I was like, you know what? I feel like motherhood doesn't need to be this hard. I feel like motherhood, all of it can be so much easier, so much more enjoyed. We've put such a pressure on just a method to it that we're forgetting we're all focused on a method of motherhood that we're completely forgetting about like the memory portion of it. Like I want my kids to have good memories of like fun stuff. And and if you do that, you're not losing another. Like if you have a day of silliness and goofiness and no structure and silly and stuff like that, like your kids are going to be fine. You're going to be better than fine, honestly. Cause like, I'd rather just my kids know me. I don't want my kids just to know me as mom. I want them to know me as me and know that I'm more than them. And I love them and I will do everything I can, but I'm more than just a mom. I'm Mary.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you know, it kind of goes back to that. You don't know that you matter until you start showing up.
Yeah.
And then you'll realize, holy shit, I matter.
Yeah.
But like when you start making choices that are from the inside of you, from the real true you, and you start letting that girl inside of you like live on the outside, and it might feel different. It might feel scary. It might feel selfish. And at first, everyone will tell you it's selfish. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see that you doing those things make the world you live in brighter. It suddenly makes it more fun. It makes it more enjoyable for everyone. And I mean, here's the thing. If your kid, let's say you have an 8-year-old and they have no friends and they're feeling kind of down and they feel like they have no talent, what are you going to do? You're going to sign them up for every damn class you can.
Yeah.
You're going to get them involved with all these things so you can find their thing.
Yeah.
They can find their people.
Yeah.
We know how to do it.
Yeah.
But for some reason, we're like, here we are as mothers, and we're like, I don't know how to find myself. Yes, we do, because we do it for our kids all the time.
Yeah.
When our kids are feeling lost, we go find them their people, we find them their thing, we get them motivated, we get them to find passion. And when your kid finds that thing that they love, I mean, my oldest, she went through a rough patch like we all do in junior high.
Yeah.
And she found figure skating.
Oh, wow.
And that girl on that ice, oh my gosh, like it is her world. It is her life. She breathes it in and out. She lives at the rink. She works at the rink. She lives at the rink. She coaches now. It is everything for her. And how grateful I am that she found her thing. Why don't we give that much weight to ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why don't we think like we have to find ourselves? It is literally a desperate matter.
Yeah.
Because we feel like this thing is missing and we're just trying to keep fixing the people. Keep fixing our house and fixing our husband and fixing all the circumstances, thinking if everything is fixed, then I'll be there. Then I'll show up. No.
Yeah, no. And that's not
it's crazy. You can show up in your messy house with all your broken people.
Yeah.
If you show up, all of a sudden, all those problems that you thought were there literally have nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
You are a whole being in the middle of the mess.
Yeah.
It's such a easier, like you said, easier way to live. There's a book. Have you ever read Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle?
No, but I've heard of it. Really good. I'll write it down.
So good. Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, but there's like a short, sweet version called Living the Power of Now, like a little bedside read, here and there. And I think that concept of not living in the present or the past and not letting people define you and literally being present, it makes the world so much simpler. You're like, why are we making it so hard?
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. No, well, and that's how I feel. That's how I feel with motherhood. I think, and I felt that way after I had my second. It was during the pandemic when everyone, I think, was like down and out and thought the world was on fire. But I just remember like, it was compounded in so many things where I remember just like being upstairs. And I think there was a moment of me just in the bathroom and like looking at myself in the mirror and being like, well, this is my life now. Like I'm supposed to look tired. I'm supposed to feel like shit. I'm supposed to do everything for every single person. And this is what I'm doing. And at that point, like I talked today about on my Instagram about like the roles of stay-at-home mom and how it's like, not your job to do everything. Like that's not your role. Like your role is not that. But that's what I thought. And my husband wasn't making that happen. I made it happen. Like I thought that was the expectation. So I didn't let him help me with anything. And I didn't want to ask for help with anything. And, it just, you forget and you just completely forget where you're done. Like, that's it. You're just mom. That's it. And
you forget that what you're doing is a choice. Mm-hmm. I think sometimes, again, we fall back into this victim, like that happened to you. Yeah. One of the things that I say all the time is the world is not happening to you. You were meant to happen to the world. Yeah. And we fall into, I mean, everybody does it. We're all humans. Like the world is just happening. We're falling victim. And we forget our power. We forget that this is a choice. We chose this. Yeah. And if we don't like it, we can choose something else. And a lot of the times I'll ask myself, when I'm getting stuck, I'll say, hey, Marcella, like, what would you be without the thought? Like all the thoughts of should, all the thoughts of doubt, all the thoughts of what I'm not or what I am, or all the things, like, what would I be doing without any of these thoughts? And then the next question is, how can I be useful here? Right. And then you're not a victim anymore. Yeah. Right. Under any circumstance, something can be happening really, really bad. And if you can ask yourself, how can I be useful? All of a sudden, there you are.
Yeah.
A really quick story. I know we're out of time, but I'm going to end with this cute story because it's so classic. My sister was waiting for someone to pull out of a parking spot at Walmart. She had like all her kids in the car. She has like 6 kids, like a million. And these people were taking forever. And she was getting so annoyed. Like, what could they possibly be doing? Like, they're not pulling out. And finally, she kind of used this methodology that her and I had been talking about. She's like, I paused. I asked myself, how can I be useful instead of mad and annoyed? Yeah. She's like, I put my car in park. I got out. I asked these 2 older women who seemed like they were like fidgeting with stuff in the back. And she's like, hey, like, is there anything I can do to help? Like, can I help you? And they're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. We're picking up our grandkids. We're trying to buckle these car seats in and we cannot figure it out. My sister's like, I got you. She goes over, click, click, click. And they were like, what would we have done without you? Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. And like, how many times do we just like instantly let ourselves get annoyed with whatever is happening with our kids, with whatever, instead of asking ourselves, how can I be super useful here? I mean, you can use it in the kitchen when you're making dinner. No one's offering to help. Someone's asking for help with homework. You know, the dog is barking. Yeah. Something's boiling over. You're so overwhelmed. The whole moment is literally like happening to you. Yeah. If you can pause and ask yourself, how can I be useful here? It's like the fog clears. You'd be like, I can show up for the homework. I can show up to the, dinner. I can put the dog out. It like becomes so much more simple.
Yeah. Well, it literally is because it all becomes like overwhelming. That's essentially what happens. Just life becomes overwhelming. And it's like, you can't hear, you can't see straight. And sometimes it just takes a second to step back and put the phone down and be like, okay, what do I need to do to figure this out right now? And that's literally all I've just figured out so many ways for myself at this point where I'm like, I still have moments where I'm like, okay, like the world's a little nuts right now. And who doesn't? But it's a good grounding effort to be able to like take a step back. And honestly, that's why I dance in the kitchen. I was going
to say, like, what do you do that like grounds you in the middle of something like that?
I mean, if it's like a crazy ass moment, then I walk away. But honestly, you know what the biggest thing is? It's putting my phone away. It's usually distraction. It's phone, it's noise, it's all that stuff where I have to turn it off and I need to like get the focus back on what's happening and it's connection. Because I feel like a lot of times we're just moving, we're going through the motions of the day, especially like I'm a stay-at-home mom. So for me, it's just literally Groundhog's Day every single day. It's just what it is. So you lose that. You forget that you're a person, let alone a mom. Like you forget your kids are more than just the names that you're calling. Like it just becomes very easy to move through the motions of the day where I feel like I need to put my phone away, tablets away, TV's off. We're all sitting down and we're playing. Like even if you set a timer for like 10 minutes and I'm like, we're going to play and I'm going to like remind myself who I'm playing with and who you are. And like, or who I am and, type of thing. And just, it's like, that's what I need. It's connection. It's connection, whether it's for my kids or my family in some way.
There's so many things that are helpful and like tiny tricks can just literally like snap you awake and aware. One of the things I do with my daughter, she gets really high anxiety and I'm like, okay, name 3 things you can see, 3 things you can hear, 3 things you can like smell.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah.
Touch, right? Yep. And I have to use that for me because even like in yoga, my brain will be like going through grocery lists or whatever, like, okay, Marcella, like name 3 things you can feel right now. Like be right here. Sure. One of the little tiny tricks, and I learned this from hypnobirthing, because in hypnobirthing, they teach you how to go like your happy place while you're birthing.
I did hypnobirthing with my son. I didn't end up using it. Well, I did. I ended up with a C-section, but I still used it like to get myself in a happy place. And I still use
it all the time, right?
I use it at the dentist now. Like I'm at the dentist and I'm like, just zone out.
Like it's okay. It was whatever. I use it during a laser hair removal treatment.
There you go. It works.
Like any pain, I'll just go to my happy place. But you can do this funny thing where you pick, I don't know, like a signal to your brain. So it's like, you can put your hand on your shoulder, put your hand on your lap. You can put both hands like flat on the counter or wherever you are, flat on the wall, just something that's like literally grounding you. I take my thumb and my finger, my pointer finger, and just put it together like this.
Yeah.
And it just tells my brain, like, we're okay. We are present. Here we are. You know, even when I do that, like just.
Well, especially because like I talked about this actually on my stories recently, the whole, what you said was like pointing out things. So because someone had asked me how I deal with, I had postpartum anxiety really bad this time. And I get anxiety from time to time, but sometimes when anxiety hits me, it feels like I'm floating. Like it literally feels like, and the last time I really felt that way was, and it was ended up not being anything, but I remember my oldest, it was 2 years ago. She fell off our kitchen, like a kitchen stool or something.
Oh, no.
And it was fine, but she was fine. But the moment I went to go look at her and she was fine, she wasn't crying. I felt another part of her head and she had a lump, and it wasn't where she bumped. It was just a lump. And I freaked out, and we went to the doctor. We ended up getting an ultrasound because they didn't know what it was. And I'm thinking my head, the worst of the worst. And I remember pacing around. I came upstairs and my husband was like, it's fine. It's fine. And I was like, I couldn't even explain to him what I was feeling, but it was like every fear in my head was just going, and my anxiety was through the roof. And I remember that feeling. That was the first time I ever was introduced to it, where it literally felt like I was like levitating off the floor, where I couldn't, for whatever reason, couldn't grasp on to the moment. Like that's how it felt. Like I was trying to grasp onto something and it just was slipping through my fingers, and it was awful. And that's where I learned to being like, okay, what do you see right now in front of you? Like what is happening directly in your environment right now? And that has been so helpful, especially with postpartum anxiety, because it's awful. Like you just
it's so important, because like that fear and that anxiety literally takes you out.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're not even like able to show up and be useful. You use your creativity, you use your know-how, use all of these things that are available to you that are individual to you. I think that's why practicing presence, practicing when bad things happen, practicing when you have like the overwhelm in the everyday, practicing how to continually be useful in those moments allows us to be useful when really bad stuff happens. You know, rather than just totally fall freaking apart like I have done before. You know? We shouldn't be losing ourselves all the time. No. We shouldn't be losing ourselves every time something really bad happens. And we shouldn't be losing ourselves when people come and go out of our lives. You know, if people pass away, we shouldn't be losing ourselves. Like we should be able to exist always. And I think we have to figure out how to practice that so that actually can be.
Agreed. We are our own foundation.
We could talk forever.
We really could.
I love this.
I'll have to have you come back on, because another big portion of what you talk about on TikTok, and I'll link everything and your handle and everything in the show notes for anyone listening, but a big portion, and we can revisit it, is the hormone stuff.
If you're doing all the right things and you still feel like shit, it's probably your hormones.
I think that's a huge discussion. Again, I'm going to have to come back on, because we're going to have to talk about that, just because I think that's, especially for us females, it's just
come back for part 2.
We're going to need to do that, because it's something I think all of us could benefit drastically from, because I think a lot of us don't realize we're even struggling from it until we are. So,
well, it's just not like readily available, and people are telling us all this crazy stuff that it's crazy. I'm new to this world, but it's pretty crazy to realize that women are completely disregarded and that we're not being offered the help that drastically can help you. I mean, just to give you like a little preview, I basically felt like crap and felt brain fog and all the things. And then all of a sudden I started hormone therapy and I got my life back. Like I fell in love with my husband again. I actually want to have sex. It changed everything. And it goes back to like being prepared for life, right? Like no one can really prepare you for motherhood, but also no one prepares you for turning 40. And what your body does when your body is literally getting older and your ovaries are getting older. No one tells you what that looks like. So then you just think you're freaking losing your mind.
No, that's not ever touched about. Like the aging, getting older in general. I feel like that talk stops at like 35.
Oh yeah, completely.
And then you have nothing.
And then you're irrelevant. So many women have told me like, after 40, I just felt irrelevant to the world.
Which is
that's insane.
I feel like 40 should be like your powerhouse.
Yeah, you're like new and you like actually know what the hell you're doing. Like you have experience. And I'm like,
yeah, because like
how?
30s, like 20s, you feel untouchable. You feel invincible a little bit. 30s, you get your world rocked because of either marriage, motherhood, or
Yep.
career, whatever it might be. And then 40s, I feel like you've got 20 years in the gate, at least from the time that you felt invincible of figuring yourself out. And you just go
40 should be like the best. And the joke is that our bodies start like failing us. So we're like ready to run, but our body's like, no, we're done.
Yeah,
but then nobody's like, oh, if you just make sure you have the right amount of hormones, you'd be good to go. I mean, I feel like I'm 20 years old again.
See, that's what we need.
And we should feel like that.
Yeah, we're gonna have you come back on for a part 2 because we
come
need to
back
talk more about that.
Okay,
yay! Well, I'm thank you so much for talking about this. I have a feeling a lot of moms are going to benefit tremendously from what we just talked about. So,
if you want more stories, you can find my book on Amazon. It's called "Wake Her Up" by Marcella Hill, and
I'll link that in the show notes as well.
Barnes and Noble, all the places you can get it anywhere.
That's so exciting.
And the Audible should be out probably by the time you post this. The Audible will be available any day. So.
Okay, well, if that's out, then I'll link everything. So once everything, just send that to me. But that's so exciting.
It feels bizarre and crazy and weird.
But how long did that take you to write?
Well, honestly, I wrote all the stories in 30 days, and then I got scared and messed it all up and gave up like a million times over 3 years.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And then finally it exists somehow with all my giving up.
But that makes you a true author. I feel like no real author can just like whip it out real quick. It always has to be a process like that. So that, okay.
Yeah, it was weird. It fell out of me. And then I was like, no, we're not doing that. 100,000. I don't even know how it exists. I literally was talking to my husband about it last night. I was like, I feel like I gave up so many times. Like, how is it even real? Yeah. I don't know how I just kept showing up, and then people kept showing up, and they're like, I can do that. And you're like, okay. Like,
that's awesome.
I don't know.
Good. That's exciting. Yay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do. And I hope that it's useful.
Always, always.
Another episode down and way more to go. But thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to help support this podcast, I would love for you to subscribe. I'd love for you to share it with others and post about it on your own social media or leave a rating and review. I cannot tell you how helpful and how appreciated those things are for me. Of course, to catch all the latest from me, you can follow me over on Instagram at The Very Merry Life, over on TikTok, The Very Merry Life. And even if you wanted to check out my monthly newsletter, you can do so by subscribing over at theverymerrylife.com. I'll see you next week. Stay tuned for more honest, raw, real chit chat. I have some amazing moms lined up coming on, and shit's going to get fun. So buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be good.